35% of us will experience emotional abuse in a close relationship. If that's you, then one emotion may stand out above them all, an all-consuming anger. I've lost count of the number of times people have told me, I just hate feeling so angry. I get it. Anger can feel terrifying, especially if it's overwhelming, and you may have been taught to hide your anger or to feel ashamed of it. But what if your anger could be your greatest ally? I know it sounds counterintuitive, especially if your anger is an all-consuming rage, but stick with me because what we're about to uncover could set you on the path to true freedom. Let me ask you something. When you feel that anger bubbling up inside you, what do you think it's trying to tell you? Anger is one of the most misunderstood emotions, but it's also one of the most vital. When you've been manipulated, lied to, or abused, anger isn't just a natural response, it's an essential response. Think of it as your body's alarm system. It's telling you something is deeply wrong, that you've been violated, and it's time to take action. That's why no matter how hard you try to suppress your anger, it will keep bubbling up. It's trying to protect you and to tell you, pay attention, something needs to change. That was certainly the case for a woman I worked with called Alice. As always, Alice isn't a real person. She's the product of my imagination and 15 years of working as a therapist. Alice grew up with a mother who was depressed. As a little girl, she would work very hard to try to console her mother, to comfort her, to make her feel better. She would try to be entertaining. Alice's mother praised her for being kind, but Alice could never get angry. If she did get angry, her mum would cry inconsolably, which was just overwhelming for Alice. So she learned to keep a lid on her anger and to be kind to everyone. It is often a case that these relationship patterns can have roots in childhood experience, but not always. I've also worked with people who are ordinarily confident and assertive, who find themselves in a relationship in which they feel small and diminished, and they lose their voice. And I wonder how you relate to that. Can you remember the last time that you stayed quiet to avoid conflict or rejection? Is this a lifelong pattern, or is it something unique to one relationship? Whatever the situation you come from, you may have learned that expressing anger leads to punishment, rejection, and more hurt. So you learn to bury it. Instead, you've learned to placate someone, to sacrifice yourself, and avoid conflict in order to prevent rejection, punishment, or further hurt. And this may have been the safest option available to you at the time. Here's what I want you to take in. Don't judge yourself for that. The side of you that kept the peace wasn't weak. It was a survival mode. And a survival mode does what it needs to do in order to keep you safe. But here's the thing. Your anger is still there. It hasn't gone away yet because it hasn't done its job. Anger is like a messenger. It isn't the enemy. In fact, it can be a guide. And if you listen to your anger, it will direct you to where you need protection and where you most need to heal. When we suppress our anger, we're not just avoiding a difficult emotion, we're disconnecting from our own needs. So take a moment and reflect. What needs have you been ignoring by suppressing your anger or by being solely focused on the person you're angry with? Anger is like a compass. It points to where you've been hurt, to where your boundaries have been crossed, and to the things that truly matter to you. And this is where self-compassion comes in. Listening to your anger isn't about feeding the rage. It's about honoring yourself. It's saying, my needs are valid and my needs are important. When you acknowledge your anger, you're aligning yourself with your true needs, reminding yourself that you're worthy of respect, care, and attention. In this way, listening to your anger can be an act of very deep love and care for yourself. As you make space for feelings of anger, ask yourself, what is your anger trying to guide you towards? Perhaps a boundary, the need to protect yourself, the need to get away from a toxic situation, or a need for love and care and friendship. If you listen, your anger is trying to guide you towards healing. So give yourself permission to follow that path. But for now, let's go back to Alice and fast forward into adulthood when she gets into a relationship with Alex, a man she meets at work who's charismatic, senior to her, and makes her feel really special. He takes her on elaborate dates and makes her feel like she's the only woman in the world. But there is a problem. Alex sometimes disappears for days at a time. Sometimes he messages her incessantly, and sometimes he goes stone cold quiet. Alice would obsess over Alex constantly, never knowing when she would see him again. She wanted to confront him, but she didn't. She didn't want to come across as too needy or demanding, so she kept quiet. And then one day, she discovered the terrible truth. Alex was married. And not only that, Alice was not the first younger woman he'd had such an affair with, and it was very unlikely that she would be the last. And unusually for Alice, she did confront him, and it backfired. Alex acted surprised. He said it was common knowledge that he was married, and Alice really should have known. And not only that, she should be grateful for all the time and energy that he's giving to her, because no one else would give her such elaborate dates or attention. He made Alice feel like she'd ruined everything. Alice was humiliated. She felt small, she felt foolish, she was filled with self-blame. And for the first time in her life, she really felt angry. I hate him, she said. And I can't stand to hate someone this much. She changed jobs to get away from him. She went full no contact, but it didn't stop her thinking about him or from feeling angry. Alice said, "This just isn't me. I used to be a kind and gentle person, and now I'm just filled with rage." I'm not surprised that Alice felt that way. She'd learned to be kind and caring as a way to keep people close. And as part of that, she'd also learned to keep her anger at bay. But that's the thing with anger. It doesn't go away just because you ignore it. It stays until you listen to what it's trying to tell you. So I want to ask you, have you been afraid of your own anger? This is common. If you have a survival mode of keeping people happy, of sacrificing yourself in order to keep the peace, that survival mode may be very frightened by your anger. Especially so if your experience of anger in your close relationships is that it leads to detrimental consequences, like being criticized, minimized, or even attacked. You may have rightly learned that it is best never to get angry at someone who is abusing you. But now, if you're out of that relationship or you're beginning to break free, it may be possible for you to welcome your anger. The very anger you were taught to suppress or perhaps see as a sign that there's something wrong with you could actually have some very important things to say. Now, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying to get angry at someone or to express your anger to someone who is hurtful, abusive, or dangerous to you. This is much more about inner work and how you relate to your anger within. Your anger is powerful. It's the voice that says you deserve better. It points out where your boundaries have been crossed, where you've been disrespected, and where you may need to protect yourself. But here's what most people don't realize about anger. Anger is not just about the abuser. It's much more about yourself. What is your anger telling you to do for yourself? How can you give yourself the care and the protection that you need? This is where healing can really begin. When you take your anger seriously, when you allow it to show you what your needs are, you disrupt the pattern of putting other people first. You begin to see yourself as worthy of attention, worthy of respect, of protection, of care. Think about it. What would it be like to finally prioritize your needs? Anger, when you listen to it, can be incredibly liberating. It helps you break free from self-sacrificing patterns and gives you the energy to say no more. It demands that your relationships be based on mutual care and respect, not manipulation or control. And here's something that most people don't know. Anger can be the fuel that drives you towards positive change. It can help you to rebuild and transform your life in ways the self-sacrificing side of you never thought possible. So if you are feeling overwhelmed by anger right now, please know that it's okay. Your anger isn't a sign that there's anything fundamentally wrong with you. It's a signal of something really important and worth protecting. It's telling you that you deserve better. So what is your anger trying to tell you? What is the better that it wants for you? What does it dream for you? What does it hope for you? It's time to listen to that voice and take back your power. And if you're ready to reclaim your life, you can watch this video next, which will give you some very practical steps that you can start to implement in order to use your anger as a tool for healing.